Hello everyone. So I wanted to start today showing you an alternate method of Alla Prima painting. And like I said, there are 100 different ways to paint. These are just a couple of ways of thinking about it, of approaching it in a way that's kind of systematic and gives you a way to structure your approach, right? So here is my palette. Actually, I have two palettes going today. So I have my regular palette with all of my colors laid out on it. And I have another palette because I'm going to want some extra space to mix today. So, work it however you need to. What I have done here is I've mixed up the two basic colors of these pieces of fruit, the pear and the apple. And so these are not straight from a tube. These are ones, this is a red with quite a lot of yellow in it. This is blue and yellow and a little bit of white together. And so I'm using these, I'm mixing up these to use as sort of a pool to mix another range of colors from, right? So these are my basic kind of local colors like we were talking about last time. But instead of blocking in these shapes in a solid color and then going in and mixing more color into that paint, we're going to mix the color on the palette and then apply it directly to where we see it. So I'm going to try to do this with just very minimal mixing on the canvas. And so you'll hear artists sometimes talk about that, mixing on the palette here as opposed to mixing on the canvas. And you can do either one, and it can work very well. So what I'm going to try to do is to mix up a range of colors and apply them just wherever I see them and not blend them at all. Now you can always come back and blend them if you want, but I want to try to work this in a way that really shows each brush stroke, and you can see where I've laid down the paint. So I'll be doing that in a time lapse as I have before. But first I'm going to mix this range of colors based on these two, the lighter colors and the shadow colors, and we'll begin and start to lay in those colors. Okay, now I've been mixing colors here for a while based on these two local colors of the pear and the apple. And of course, when you're mixing color, especially these prime colors you're going to use as a basis for the rest of these, you want to do it based on observation. So you want to look carefully at whatever it is you're painting. Mix color, gradually, and then as you get the color on your brush or your palette knife, hold that up to the object that you're trying to match the color. And you're probably working from a photo, so I would say mix up some color on your palette knife or your brush, hold it right up to the photo and see if it matches. And a good way to tell if it does match is to squint. And if those two colors kind of blur together, then you're pretty close. So mix the color, hold it up, make sure it matches, squint, and then you can mix a range of colors. So now what I've done is I've taken that local color of the pear and the apple, and I've mixed out some other colors that I've observed in the lighted areas and in the shadow areas. So I have a whole range of color already mixed. And then all I'm doing, and of course you can always go back and change these too. You can add a little bit of something to one of them so that they match more closely what you're seeing. But this is just a start for organizing your palette. So you have a good range of different colors to start with here that you can apply directly to the canvas. And I'm going to try to apply these without much mixing at all. So I'm going to try to just apply them straight as they go. So you can see the way I was laying in the paint there, one area of color at a time. So rather than blocking in the whole thing with one color, I'm using that range of colors that I mixed before and placing them just where I see them. Very, very minimal blending. It all happens accidentally, right? So they're going to overlap a little bit and blend together, but you can see really clearly where each area of color is. Now I painted the pear starting with the middle tones, which is a good way to start, and then I painted up to the highlight colors and then down into the shadows. On the apple I did the opposite. I started with the middle tone and then I painted down into the darker shadow colors. Then I went back and painted again from the middle tone up into the highlights. And I think that's the best way to go, because the earlier you get your shadows in onto the painting, the more structure it adds, and it's easier to see sort of where the painting is going. So get those shadows in as early as you can. And then you can see, you can go back into this. The way it looks now, it's much more like the Impressionists painted. So the Impressionists would mix colors as they saw them, lay them on the palette, and then do minimal blending because they wanted the purity of the color to come through. But of course, you can do whatever you like. It's your painting. So you can go back once this is laid down and do some more blending if you want. Use the end of your brush very lightly there and just blend out between the border of those colors to the extent that you like, you know. So if you want a softer effect, that's up to you. This is a little more impressionist sort of effect. You can see the difference between the earlier painting where I was laying down the color in each object and then blending and mixing color into that, compared to this, which is much more what they call painterly. It looks very much like a painting, you know. It's not trying to hide the fact. It's not trying to kind of look realistic or photographic, except in the way of color, right? You try to get those colors accurate. But you can blend that out however much you think is appropriate for what you want, right? So I hope this is helpful. Two different ways of thinking, of organizing your palette. It's just a way to begin, right? As you paint on this, you'll get a lot of experience really quickly. You'll learn a lot. And so don't worry early on if things are a little bit slow. Do your best work, obviously. Kind of work methodically, patiently always. And I can't wait to see the results from these. These are always really fun paintings. So I hope you all have a good week. I hope to talk to you soon.